international arena, in fact, specifically to the United States of America, Donald Trump launched a furious attack on Zoran Mamdani after the Democratic Socialist won the NYC's mayoral primary. Now, as former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo conceded New York City's Democratic mayoral primary election, Mandani won 43.5% of the vote with 90% of ballots counted. Trump called Mamdani 100% communist, lunatic and mocked him. Trump has also criticized other leaders who support Mamdani, including Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in another post. He, in fact, mocked the Democratic Party's performance, claimed that, and I quote, "If Zoran Mamdani becomes the future communist mayor of New York City, then the country is really screwed." With that, we are in fact being joined by our colleague Rohit Sharma on the broadcast. Rohit, a very good morning to you. You know, very firstly, Trump is jittery after the Democratic mayoral candidate Mamdani's win at the NYC primary ballot. How do we expect Trump's attacks on Mamdani to in fact affect the mayoral polls in New York City? Can it in fact backfire at this point?
Well, look, I don't think President Trump would have been even a fan of the other candidate who was on the ballot, which is Andrew Cuomo. And him and Andrew Cuomo, traded a lot of bobs during COVID in 2020 when Andrew Cuomo was the governor of New York. So I think, taking these or making these attacks on Mamdani there's a reason for it. And I don't think he wants to see another progressive mayor of New York City. And now the reason I say that is because the current mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, was a Democrat. He recently became an independent, and he's going to be in the election, fighting this election against Mamdani. Eric Adams, a Democrat through and through, had a fallout with President Biden last year. He criticized President Biden's immigration policies. He said, the housing of undocumented immigrants and inflow of undocumented immigrants caused a lot of stress on New York City and its residents. And he was indicted, in some corrupt cases. Suddenly, Donald Trump wins the presidency. The cases against Eric Adams get dropped. He becomes independent, and his platform has moved more towards center, if not completely towards center-right. So I think President Donald Trump, knowing the history of New York and that, the fact that anybody who wins the primary from the Democratic Party goes on to win the general election, is possibly looking at Mamdani becoming the next mayor of New York City. And he's criticizing the platform on which Mamdani has run, which is left progressive, somebody who's talked about how New York City should have grocery shops, they should have price control, the left progressive policies that President Donald Trump completely, loathes. So it is going to be an interesting mayoral race. It could backfire, or in the sense that this guy overwhelmingly won the primary, and New York is known to be a very, very, very blue state, and New York City is a very blue city. So it could. We do not know. We live in a very, especially in America, we're living in unrealistic times when it comes to making political predictions. But for sure, I think this is the beginning of attacks, and Eric Adams would like to see some of these attacks against Mamdani from President Trump and his surrogates, so that it gives Eric Adams at least a chance in the general election in November.
Zoran Mamdani has won the Democratic nomination for the mayor of New York City. His triumph over Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary represents more than just an electoral win, but also reflects the space for progressive politics in a city known for its entrenched power structures.
We made history. In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done. My friends, we have done it. I will will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor.
33-year-old Mamdani was labelled as merely a Muslim socialist with radical ideas. But he ran a relentlessly disciplined campaign built around cost of living issues, zeroing in on essentials such as housing, transport, childcare and groceries. His campaign centered on the message that voters in the most expensive US city want Democrats to focus on affordability.
My name is Assemblymember Zoran Mamdani, and I am running to make the city affordable. I'll freeze the rent for millions of tenants, make buses fast and free, and deliver universal childcare. And before you ask, I'll pay for it by taxing the rich.
Mamdani has also been an outspoken critic of Israel's attack on Gaza. But beyond his messaging, Mamdani's political sway was rooted in fluency of language, clarity of purpose, and the ability to speak convincingly to voters from many different backgrounds.
पर बात ये नहीं है कि मैं क्या बनूंगा, बात ये है कि मैं क्या करूंगा हमारे कम्युनिटीज के लिए और हर एक न्यूयॉर्कर के लिए। मैं हमारे शहर को अफोर्डेबल बनाऊंगा। न्यूयॉर्कर्स मुश्किल से अफोर्ड कर रहे हैं रोटी, कपड़ा और मकान। मैं ये सब बदलने के लिए लड़ रहा हूँ। रेंट फ्रीज, फ्री बसेस, यूनिवर्सल चाइल्ड केयर और सस्ती ग्रोसरीज के जरिए।
Mamdani's win appears a result of him reaching out to young, working-class voters who felt alienated by the Democratic Party. But his political momentum will now be tested against Eric Adams. If elected, Zoran will become the first Indian American and the first Muslim mayor of New York. Polls suggest that given his lead, his win on the final ballot is likely. Mamdani faces an enormous responsibility, not only of New York City, but also of a broader progressive movement. Bureau Report, India Today.